Hello and welcome to another episode of Intentionality where we talk about life with purpose. There is a saying, you will see the characteristics of a human being in their childhood. And today we have someone during her childhood, she was very shy in speaking to people, but she went on to become a teacher and today she leads Yogathon where there are hundreds of people in front of her, all eyes on her. That's a transformation. So she helps people transform their lives. Today we have Harsha Bhatia, who is a yogi, and she takes pleasure in impacting lives of others. So let's learn more about transformation today from Harsha. Welcome, Harsha, to Intentionality Podcast. So having yoga as a base has certainly helped you. So when did the running enter your life?
So I gave birth to my son in 2017 end, so almost like 18. 2018 I gave birth. So I was like, yeah, again a setback as a woman. You gained 20 kilos from 51 kilo to I turned into 80 kilos. Uh, then I lost all the core strength. I couldn't do any more a headstand because you can't do. You start getting that weaker core after the delivery. I had a normal delivery, so that part was there. So definitely for every woman it becomes a little setback. That's where some women also goes into postpartum depression. People were not even aware of it. There is something called diastasis recti in a woman's body where the abs what you see, rectus abdominis, it is connected like your six pack what you call, it's connected, right? But as the belly starts growing bigger, there is a separation, it tears the muscle. So you have to really give a good amount of time and the therapy to bring it all together. Otherwise, you will see all the postpartum, all the women who had baby, most of the women who had baby, in terms of losing weight, they lose their weight, but they have a saggy belly. So there's a lot of setbacks. But since I had all the technical knowledge of postpartum corrections and everything, I took it very slow, and I said like, "Ab maza nahi aa raha hai. I'm just surviving. I'm not thriving in my life. How can I thrive in my life right now? Just delivered, right? Why can't I run my first full marathon this year?" So I started preparing for it. That's where I started preparing and getting ready for the TMM, next year TMM,
Yeah.
which happened in 2020, right? It happens January, right?
January, yeah.
Yes.
It happens
So
in
so
January.
so I prepared for the whole 1 year, and I did my first full
So you
marathon.
had not run before.
I had been running. I'd been running, but never beyond 21 kilometer. So I said like 21 to run kar liya. I wanted like, so in my life it's always like this from my childhood. Like if I get any setback, it's like a bow and arrow wala theory. So if the bow is stretched back, it's like a setback. What will happen if I now release? It'll go propel more further ahead. So I see my life like this. So I saw this as a setback.
That's a great way to look at it.
So I set a setback. So I have to set a good goal. That's where I set the goal of first full marathon. And I also set a goal of becoming a trainer in full marathon. So I started certifying myself in that. So I said I did an ACSM certification of marathon coaching. And I also did a V.O2 coaching. So yeah. So that's why I was training myself to be a trainer as well as I was preparing for my first full so that I can see whatever I'm learning if I can apply and see the benefits of it.
Got it. So being a teacher, you're always looking for how can I, so I learn and then I can teach this.
Yes.
Mm.
So that time I was breastfeeding, in fact. So it was a time where I had to spend more time with my kid, get back to my job, and then do a first full marathon.
How did you balance all the priorities?
I stopped running in the early mornings. That's what the first thing I did. Because my kid used to, like, till he became 1.5 year or 2 year old, he used to wake up in the nights. So I never used to get a good sleep in the night. And you need to have a good sleep, right? So I stopped running in a one particular time. Like earlier, we all runners have this thing now, early morning.
Right.
Yeah, I stopped that. So I am like, whenever my kid is sleeping, I'm going out. So I used to, like, how we sneak into our fridge to see what's there in that a treat. I used to sneak in for the ground to run. So that's how I managed. So I never used to think like, okay, fine, this is my running time. No, I got time, run. Yeah.
Did you go through postpartum depression?
Not exactly. Thankfully, not exactly.
Because you had all the knowledge.
Yes, and very practical approach, very being active. And one more thing, for all the women out there, I really want to say this. Please take this very humbly. Don't try to become a superwoman. We don't need to do everything by our own self. Rather, smart working is the best key. Build a system around you, build a support system around you. So, before even having my work, because first 6 months I was like totally breastfeeding my son. He was not at all on top of any other thing. So I need to be dedicated. So I decided first 6 months I'm just going to dedicate to my kid, be all around for feeding and taking care of him. By that time I was building my support system. So having a nanny who can take care of my kid while I'm in the run, and having a proper doctors for me who can help me with my checkups and with my nutrition, because postpartum you go through a lot of nutrition loss, and continuously checking my diastasis recti so that I don't put pressure. Because what happens now when you start early training na, wo वैसे का वैसा ही रह जाता है. Like the muscle doesn't connect back, so you do more harms in core training postpartum. So all this thing I kept a check. I had support system like a teacher, like a trainer, teacher for myself. Like in the gym, I had one trainer. Like, listen, I might be like very exhausted, but you are going to take care of me. So I had that system. Once the system was built, it became easier for me. So I'm not like nahi mujhe hi karna hai. And second thing I did was I consciously put this thought in my parenting that I'm going to create a happy child. Touch wood. I'm going to create a happy child who is going to be happy irrespective of anything. Like I be with him, I don't be with him. He being outside the family, he being inside the family. In every circumstances, he is going to be a happy child. So today, even if I leave him with you, like I won't leave. But then even if I do, he won't be crying like, where is my father? Where's my mother? No, 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 not like that. He'll be a happy child, rather entertaining you only, engaging you in his science experiments. So these two things really help me to get surpass the postpartum depression thing.
Got it. So if somebody is, let's say, preparing to have a child, so based on your experience, how can they plan such that they don't get into postpartum depression?
When you're planning to have a baby, nowadays people are very smart. They plan, right?
Yeah.
So they have like trimester, first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. There's also something called zero trimester. It's the 3 months before the pregnancy. So you start with that zero trimester. You don't start when you're pregnant. You start beforehand. You start with your nutrition. You start with your activities. Because see, remember, um, during your pregnancy, you will be doing the same activity what you used to do. By the way, I ran during my pregnancy. I did headstand during my pregnancy. I did headstand till my 8th month of my pregnancy with this belly. I was upside down. I used to do deadlifts in my pregnancy.
So that's all safe.
It's all safe, yes. And I had always have a doctor beside me, right? Like in the sense like I was living in Dubai that particular time, and thankfully the standards are very high over there. The doctors are much more prepared. They are open. So there used to be prenatal class in the hospital itself. So when the doctors are there, why I need to be worried? And as a coach itself, I understood that, for example, if my PR is like say 100 kilos in deadlift, I will reduce that to like say 30 kilos. But I can practice the movement, right? Similarly, I used to run. I used to run, say, around approx 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers, like that. I used to run. So I used to observe my body. It's not like that I have to run. If my body feels good, I feel good. I used to run, and that used to give me refreshment. I should have a proper shoes, proper gears, and everything. So it is all safe if you do it with the proper knowledge. I could do a headstand because I've had very good technical knowledge. My experience was very long. So I won't tell my students to do a headstand. No. So why I said zero trimester? Because understand you can do all the movement, but reduce to 20 to 30 percentage. That then it's safe.
Let's say I'm someone who doesn't have any background. I don't know yoga yet. I haven't gone to gym in my life. I haven't run. Now I listen to Arsha. I feel that I need to do all this, and I don't have privilege of having a coach, going to gym, or maybe doctor to advise me all the time. But I still want to take advice that Arsha is giving. What can I do?
Okay. Um, you need to have a doctor. Without doctor, you can't do this. You need to have your doctor. You need to have your regular scans during your pregnancy. So please understand this. If you don't have that setup, then everything else goes for a pause. You need to have a doctor backing you up. The basic things what you can do is start with zero trimester 3 months before planning your pregnancy. Start with walking. Start with swimming. Swimming is the best exercise you can do during your pregnancy as well. Start learning in that 3 months. In 3 months, you can learn a lot. I learned swimming in 1 month. So you can learn everything. Huh? You have to prepare yourself for the 3 months. Like that, okay, fine. I am going to leave all my junk food. I am going to um, eat and sleep in the correct time. I'm going to walk. I'm going to do at least see some of the videos and start with the breath work. Start doing that. Okay. And there are invest. I know you are saying that people who can't invest, who don't have the luxury, uh, still approach a teacher. Not necessarily that every teacher will be like asking you to give them money. Some teacher will understand. At least they can have a one call with you. It's like, okay, fine, I can't give you money, but can I just get one call on you with you, like once in 3 months, and maybe some small amount if you can charge me. Yeah, find out a way. I so if you're seeing this podcast and you're thinking like, okay, Harsha, I said so many things. What should I do now? Uh, Start with minimal walking. Start with finding a support system. Again, there's no compromise in that. Please understand. Even if you don't have the privilege, search for one. My if so if I tell you about my Ironman journey, I didn't had the privilege. Calcutta doesn't have that privilege of learning sea swimming. It doesn't have those roads and doesn't have the coaches to teach you how to ride a road bike. I still did it, right? I so privilege will never come to you. By the way, you have to go after it. You have to find few things which can work for you. Don't give up, I would say. So start finding a coach, start having a good doctor, start walking, and good sleep and lifestyle. It is free. Good lifestyle is free. Walking is free. Start with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yes. And then you ask about the postpartum depression, how to avoid that. Be active. Simple. Try to be active. Second, build a support system. Only when you have a proper support system and you get your proper recovery. And it is not just the women's duty, by the way. It is their whole family's duty. It is their husband's duty. If the woman is asking for a help, if you can't afford a nanny, your husband has to give extra hours to support you. Yeah, in laws have to give extra hours to support you. Neighbors will do. Like you have to approach and ask. There is no guilt in asking. Like that's why in yoga and in the some of the spiritual practices there is a practice of calling called bhiksha. Have you heard of it?
No.
You ask and then only you eat. It does both ways. One, it saves you time from all the cooking and this and that, and you focus only on your sadhana. Second, it does is it teaches you ego culturing. Don't feel that you will one thing, don't feel that, oh, if what if they say no. I'll feel bad, I'll feel smaller. Fine, be ready to take a no. Only when you're ready for a no, only when you're ready for a failure, that's when you can actually go to your success path and pass and excel in that. If you're always scared, what if I get DNF in a full marathon? What if I fall from a headstand posture? Dude, you will never learn anything. You have to be ready for it, because that is just a circumstance. Like, okay, fine. Today you said no. Today I failed. It's today. I'm alive. I can do it tomorrow. Support system, ask for it. When you have these two things now, like the support system and your own activity, the postpartum depression won't happen, because the doctors will be there to guide you. Take this nutrition, take this supplements and everything. Yeah.
I think they should be entitled because not everybody can give life to a new human. So they are superhumans actually. Women are superhumans. So they should be entitled.
Yes, yes, yes. They should be pampered as well.
Right.
They are being pampered, yeah.
Right.
Mm.
You signed up for triathlon without knowing swimming.
Without knowing swimming and without knowing how to ride a road bike.
Oh, you did not know how to ride a bike. So why did this thought come to you?
You tell me now.
Of course, you are always curious and then you're going behind something. But there must have been some trigger.
That's what I said. No? Setback, the bow and arrow. Same thing happened.
So what was the trigger for getting into triathlon?
Well, I was 39, going to be 40. So I had this thing in my mind that I want to be the strongest when I'm turning 40. So what is the craziest thing I can do? So Ironman. That's the craziest thing you can do when you turn 40 or before you turn 40. Something like that, There was there in my mind. But I did not know how to swim 25 meters off the pool. I did not know how to ride a bike. But then, like, yeah, if I have thought that I want to be the strongest at my 40, it doesn't just mean that I have to be strongest at the physical level. I wanted to be strongest at the mental level, emotional level as well. So when you talk about Ironman, so I did Ironman 70.3. It is really grilling in terms of your emotions for so many hours of training, and on the race day, so many hours of stretch of doing the race, then facing the fear in the ocean of swimming. The jellyfishes are there, that. Then the weather is hot, humid in Goa. The bike course is hilly. And after you have done 2 kilometers of swim, 90 kilometers of bike, you then need to do your half marathon. I'm like, wow. Now, that can challenge me and that can prove that, yes, I am the strongest or whatever I have been so far. And the 40 is my strongest. So that's what the trigger was. A positive trigger, you can say.
Before I ask you something else, earlier you said you can meditate on triathlon as well. It is so intense. But when you talk about yoga and meditation, it's not intensity, isn't it?
In any endurance activity, when you are tensed, your heart rate shoots up. You are already challenging your heart. You're already, pushing your body. So by doing the breath work, like synchronized breathing, have you heard of chi running, by the way?
Yeah.
There's a part of energy and breath work with the running part as well. So same goes with the swim. Imagine I'm swimming in the ocean. If I panic in the ocean, my heart rate goes up. The moment my heart rate goes up, my breath rate also goes haywire. The moment I lose my breath synchronization, my race is over. The maximum number of DNF happens in an Ironman is in swim. So I didn't wanted that. So that's where I started doing a regular pranayam every single day, leading up to my race for the last 1 month. So even my coach was in the favor, and he was in fact insisting that you do the pranayam. So when I do Kapalbhati, this is an hyperventilative breathing exercise, which makes you tolerant with the, like, when you are having too much of carbon dioxide inside, then strong breath holds after that. Like say first 30 seconds, then 1 minute, then 1.5 minutes, then 2 minutes, then 2.5 minutes breath hold. So when you do that, it really synchronizes your body, and it uh, gives you a preparation what will happen in the panic mode and how you can use it pre-hand. So my breath work really helped. It really calmed me down during my swim. You need to be relaxed in your body to swim faster, by the way. You don't need strength in the swimming. You need technique, and you need to be in sync with your breath. In terms of cycling, because yoga always taught me to believe in the higher forces, it believed in that I'm again not my body, not my mind, not my emotions. So whatever it is saying, the mind is saying at say 60-kilometer mark, when the heat is really uh, like high and the wind is against you, and still you have to like go for the next 30 kilometers. You really like at that particular time, yoga, the brain work of your yoga, it really helps you. The sanity really helps you in that phase. And running, obviously, I think it's all about how you approach things. You have to understand yoga teaches you the way of life, way of tackling the things. It makes you a wiser person. So tell me one thing, if there's one person who is not at all wise but has all the strength, all the capability, and the other person has this equal amount of strength, equal amount of capability, and plus he is wiser, who will do better?
Obviously, the wiser one will do
So
better.
yoga is making me more wiser, because it helps me to calm myself down, to detach, to practice pratyahara, that is detachment from the fear. It helps me to not, so in Bhagavad Gita they say, right, like fal ki chinta mat kar, right? So if I am so worried, will I reach my finish line properly, and I'm so attached with the finish line, so attached with the finishing goal, I will not focus on the process, right? So to break down everything, that okay, when I'm starting to swim, I will just swim. Now I'm not at all thinking about my running or cycling. When I'm doing my cycling, my swim is done, I'm happy about it, but I'm not at all thinking how my run is going to be. So that detachment of every place. So like for example, when you are sitting in this podcast, you're not thinking, oh my god, this pending work is there in my office, or that's my wife said to bring me in the evening, my kid has demanded me this. No, you can't do that. Yoga helps you to makes that detachment more firm. It teaches you to detach and be in that present moment. Oh god, this is like, thank you for making me explain this, because I am also revising this and saying while I'm explaining. So, yoga in any sports, it gives you the presence in that moment. Apply it anywhere, it'll give you good results. So, as simple as that. So, yoga teaches you to be present, to calm yourself down, and be wiser. I think that's needed everywhere.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should be the common protocol, whatever you do.
Yeah.
Right.
And yoga helps you to. So, that's what I'm saying. Yoga is like the base. Without the base, see, when a building has already been constructed, like the Burj Khalifa,
Certain
yeah.
made foundation.
So, no. But then when people see the Burj Khalifa, they are appreciating the Burj Khalifa. Nobody is going and digging down and see that, oh my God, in that sand you're building Burj Khalifa, how much of a stronger base it would have required. How many people of them are thinking? So yoga works very subtle way. It won't speak very loud, but it is already there at the base to hold you strong in your ups and downs. That's what yoga is there to do to you. You do your work, you do your triathlon, you do your business, you do whatever you want. I'm there to handle you. So that if anything fluctuates, you calm yourself down very quickly, and you're ready to take a wiser decision at that particular time.
So you coach people.
I
Right?
do.
So you do coach them on lifestyle and wellness.
Yes.
What's the philosophy that you take when you coach people?
First of all, I don't go with any of my philosophy. I just sit there as a listener, understand where are they coming from, and hold a very safe space for them to explore their inner potential. For example, a woman comes to me, she wants to run a marathon, and she has an hindrance that she's not able to do it. So first I'll listen. why she wants to run a marathon, what is stopping her. Now, meanwhile, while she's speaking all this thing, she herself discovers that, okay, fine, this is the point where I'm struggling. I'm not able to stop scrolling in the night, which is not helping me to sleep early, which is not helping me to wake up early. I need to do that. Now I come in, okay, fine. Now you now know the problem. Now let us both sit together and understand how we can reach there. Like one person came to me, one lady came to me. She was 60-year-old. Uh, she could barely sit on the floor. And she joined my group yoga classes. And now everyone was young in that class, okay? I did not say no to her. So, like, fine, no problem. If you can't do Surya Namaskar or sit on the floor, what you can do is take a chair and you do whatever we are doing on the mat, you do it on the chair. It was her determination. It is not teacher who will bless the students with something, some miracle. No, that doesn't happen. She was determined. She started coming every like 3 days in a week, and every alternate day she used to repeat my classes, which barely students do. She did it within 1.5 year. And I'm not saying that, oh, 3 months means she had this change. It's not practical. No change happens in 3 months or 6 months, okay? You need to give more than a year. She gave 1.5 year. Her transformation, listen to this. She did 108 Surya Namaskar on the floor.
Nice.
Where she was not able to sit down, she could do that. She could hold 2 minutes plank. She could do 100 squat at a go. I mean, like, she could do like warrior series. She could do everything a young chap could do. And she was challenging every young person around her. Now that's a transformation. And that was her grit. I was just a safe place for her and a right guidance for her. So whenever I go to a coaching, I don't have a fixed agenda. I go with the openness because that's what I want from the other party as well. Because if I go with a set philosophy, then they have to like fit into that philosophy, which is not good for everyone, right? So I just go open heartedly, listen to them. We both figure out what needs to be worked on, and then we both work on that. Recently, one of my student, he is a he runs a company called ClearNet, where it's a medical company where they work with critical care and all those things. Now he was 110 kilos. He lost all the weights, but then he wanted to run a full marathon. But he wanted to do it in a proper guidance. He came to me, and then we sat. And he's an avid traveler, like because of his work and other things and all. We figured out what is what is his problem zone, where we can schedule his runnings, how strength training can be placed. So he was prepared. I just went to be the facilitator for him. That's it. So I think I'd do that with everyone, be it a physical problem, be it a financial challenge, be it a relationship challenge. I go with an open heart and listen to them. And that's how the journey begins.
So you listen, which
Hmm.
will enable them to get awareness. Because
Yes.
as they speak to you, they get the awareness themselves.
Yes.
So then you collaborate.
I collaborate. Oh, collaboration is remember that class 3 kids?
Right.
That's been my this go-to. Collaborate. We are equal. Like, I'm more knowledgeable. I can guide you with that. That's it. Knowledge is like you have like 1 rupees, I have 2 rupees. We both have money. It's just like I just have a little more. Simple, no? So we can exchange that. Yeah, we can share that. Simple as that.
Makes sense. So going back to triathlon. So you did not know cycling, you did not know swimming. How did you go about learning both of them? If I heard people saying, I did not know swimming, so I learned swimming. But this is the first time I'm hearing someone who does not know 2 of the 3 that are needed. So how did you go about learning?
There's a Hindi quote called "Ghat Ghat ka pani piya." Have you heard that? So I first went to Pune, met Coach Chaitanya, amazing coach. He and Pratik, they were hosting a swim camp. So one of my fellow triathlete, he's very good in triathlon. His name is Bratin Datta. He advised that, hey, go to this person. I was like, okay, let's pack bags, go to Pune. Went, attended a camp in a dam, like a lake water kind of place. learned little bit, like learned the maximum I could swim over there was 60 meters. Okay, with the help of my coach, he being beside me. I came back to my pool. Still, I was not able to do my 25-meter pool because that was supported with lot of motivation and lot of guidance and everything. Again, pool as like zero, back to zero. I am hardly doing 25 meters that properly. I was like, "Okay, I have to do 50." Somehow I reached 50, but then I was like, not happening. Then the same Chaitanya, like we call him Chai. He hosted a camp in Bombay, in sea. I was like, "Okay, I need to learn sea also." I went there. Then again, Pratik and Chai, they taught me how to do swim till 100 meters in the ocean. I again came back, 50 meters I could do in the pool by myself. Still struggling. Okay. Then I heard about Indrajit. And why I'm taking all this name, so that the listeners could really connect with them. Guys, go to the coaches. Unko pagal kar do. Just go catch hold of the coaches, like, teach me. They are there to teach you, but you have to be the seeker, right? Then I went to Indrajit. So Chai and Pratik had corrected my forms very well, but still that hindrance of open water was not going. Heard of this guy called Indrajit. He was introduced to me by one of, again, very good friend. He has a magic wand. I'm telling you, guys, listen to this. Whoever has a fear of open water, just go to this person. Yeah. So I went to him. I said, like, listen, I can do only 50 meters in the pool. ठीक है. He's like, okay, देखते हैं. He always say like, हाँ, देखते हैं. I did 4 days classes with him in Bambolim Beach in Goa. So this time was Goa. So I went to Goa, 4 days camp. On the 4th day, he made me swim 1500 meters. Start from 50 to 1500 meters. Now you tell me he doesn't have a
In
magic wand.
4 days.
In 4 days. Now you tell me that he doesn't have a magic wand.
So you had been to 2 camps, and this is the 3rd camp where
So the first 2 camps, if the first 2 camps were not there, I wouldn't have done 15. See, again, that they were building the base for me. It doesn't mean this was just the bottle opener for me. But he did it. And boy, I was like, "ठीक है, हो गया." Then I came back. Then I could swim like 500, 600 meters in the pool non-stop. And then I started swimming. Then still I had this fear. Then I came to Bangalore. Then the Gunjur Lake swim. Then I met my coach, Anirudh. I started training with him. He used to give me all the plans and all, but he was in Bangalore, I was in Calcutta. So again, the real-time skill learning has to be done, right? I came to Bangalore. Then I started swimming. I swam in the Gunjur Lake. Then I did the BMF race, my first official Olympic over here. So that's how the swim happened. So now you tell me the cities. I swam in Pune, Bombay, Goa, Bangalore, Calcutta. I was again swimming. So घाट घाट का पानी
So
पिया
you
है
went all
मैंने.
around.
I went all around to all the coaches. So when I was finishing the Ironman, all the coaches, though they were not directly coaching me, Anirudh was my coach, though they were not coaching me directly, but they all were there because I knew the community and community knew me. Somehow I connected with all over India. So everyone was cheering me up. And that gave me the energy at the ends, like that lap. It's like, oh my God, that was like heartwarming. And these are the real teachers who stand for you, who cheers for you, even though you are no more learning from them anymore. Matlab, they are real teachers. For me, it's the same theory. Like, if you have learned with me once in a lifetime, you're always going to be my student, and I'm always going to be your cheerleader for you. So that's what they also showed. And I was like in awe with the community, with the sport. And see, it's not just the sport sometimes, it's the community, it's the culture, it's the strength, it's the inner strength power what they showed. So that was about swimming.
So leave the ego at home,
Yes.
go.
I don't know. Teach me. I'm going to be 40. Teach me.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
How did cycling happen?
Oh my God. I was like so scared. The first camp I attended was again Chaitanya, in Goa. He gave me one rented bike. I didn't had a bike then. So he made me do all the routes and all. I was like all the time panicking that he got me some of his fellow ki iske saath raho sara time. So half route I used to be on the bike, half route on the car. Bas ho gaya. Now I want to be in the car. So but it started my journey. Then I got my new bike. That bike was sponsored by one of my student. I'm really thankful to him. Really humble for him. That was a Merida 8000. Touch wood. My best. Matlab, it's because that was not just a bike sponsored or gifted, but that came with lot of well wishes. I somehow connected with that bike as well. Now that's my baby. It's like kind of like how I see the men treating their cars like a second wife or a first girlfriend or something like that. Now I have that craze for my bike. So it's like that. Then I met this magician, like how I named the magician in swimming. It was Indrajit. Can vouch for him in terms of open water. So techniques and all, see, all are there, but then somehow open water na wo करवा देता है. Same way, Anirudh was very good in terms of, whenever I was crashing, Anirudh was there to boost my motivation. But unfortunately, he was not there with me. I wanted someone to handhold me because I just want. Someone talked about Ranjit. He's a fellow from Bangalore. He's a triathlon coach. He works with Yoska. Young chap, very young chap, full of muscles. This fellow, he's like he's like Indrajit, like raw. So Indrajit doesn't use any fins or any board or any of the equipment. He doesn't use. Other coaches, they use very technical things which are very useful, very useful. This guy is like pure desi, वैसा. And same with Indrajit. It's like, no, nothing technical. I'll come, I'll teach you. So I couldn't manage to, go downhill very properly. So you need to eat and drink on the bike while you're riding for 90 kilometers so that you don't waste time and you don't waste the momentum. I couldn't do that. Imagine I'm already struggling in a road bike with both the hands, and now you're telling me, okay, with one hand I have to juggle. Come on, for now it's fine. Earlier, it was like, wow, can you do that? Like people are taking their pictures and videos while you're cycling. How can you even do that? So I met this guy. He broke down everything step by step by step. I was like in awe. I like yeah, that's what I needed. That's what I needed because he did not just say, okay, grab the bottle. Like it's like, okay, fine, your hands is on the stems. Now just remove it, tap it, and now just tap down and tap up. Like he broke down every aspect of it. My done. The last year June I came to him. July I came to him. August I did my triathlon, my first Olympic triathlon, and I was like sorted.
It's like you're saying, as a teacher, your job is to simplify things for the students.
Yeah. At times the problem becomes when a teacher becomes too advanced and they have all the advanced students with them. Like for example, you're teaching all the Olympic kids. New students come with you who has a potential of going to the Olympic but might not know the basics. And you have to be that humble to teach them. But some teachers, they often forget that. They say, hey, this is the basic standard. At least do this much. Oh, you are not even doing full marathon sub 4. Forget about it. Don't come to me. Go to that coach. So that aspects are there, still there in some of the teachers. So I really feel that gap is there. Now, if there, but thankfully there are some teachers who take students as just students and not have any preconceived like notion for them. So yeah, that's what my journey is: swimming and cycling.
How did the Goa event go?
There was struggle as a first timer. Swim was fine, bike was slow, but then I was happy. I was happy. I did not stop anywhere. That was my own breakthrough. That because in my mind initially I had to stop in between after in that 90 kilo. I didn't. And in the run, I was not even pushing. I was like, this is my celebration time. I'm going to celebrate this run. I'm not going to race this run. But somehow I wanted that. So there was like whole course was filled with foods. Like lots of ice baths were there. So every stop I was taking ice bath, cold drinks. Then I never drink cold drinks, but there I was having Coke, there I was having Red Bull, I was having gels, I was having banana, whatever everyone was giving, I was eating, taking bath with the ice water. I was like thoroughly enjoying with everyone cheering. I was like cheering back to them. So it was fun. It was like a memorable thing for me to finish. And I came fourth in my age category.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So,
That was your first triathlon.
yes.
I mean,
First
yeah,
half.
half Ironman.
Yeah.
Right.
This, yeah, 40. Age 40. 6th October, I turned 40. 27th October, I did my first 70.3. I don't know what
Nice.
will happen when I turn 50.
I don't know. Maybe you'll be on the Mount Everest. Who knows?
Or maybe more at the
Or maybe
more in the. So like when you talk about yoga and everything, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है ऐसा लोग बोलते हैं, right? Yes, it's there that when you do a Mount Everest, when you do a full Ironman, when you do an Ultraman, you know about Ultraman, right? So all this thing is there so people can see what you have done. But somewhere that inner voice says there is something more harder than this, more deeper than this, and more powerful than this. I don't know what it is right now for me, but there is something more. Maybe you won't be able to see that directly. But if I can achieve that in my 50s, that's my goal. Where if I'm able to impact, say, 10,000 people right now, maybe there it will be in billions and millions when I'll. So that level where this Ironman will also become smaller. Yeah, I don't know what it is that. I have to explore yet.
talking about impact on others. So tell me about some stories where you have impacted transformation, where you still get goosebumps.
So I first impact was that class 3 kids itself. Then when I came into yoga and in sound healing, which we do, and pranic healing, I started helping people in their different situations. There was one person who had 2 miscarriages with IVF. So IVF costs a lot, takes a toll on your body. But she was not able to conceive with 2 IVF as well. We did some sessions, some counseling. It wasn't counseling again. I never do counseling. It's more like coaching, rather, in a spiritual coaching way. She conceived. She conceived naturally. After 2 failed IVF, she conceived naturally. She had a healthy baby after that. So I don't know, was it me? Was it that healing? Or was it her time? But then that thing happened and she called me one fine day. She's like, Harsha, 6 months back, you said, Harsh, that wait 6 months and you will get some news. And I had forgotten after saying that. But that something triggered in her. And then that got her life. It's such a miraculous thing which she adores as a baby. So that was the one of the very impactful thing.
Yeah, that's actually a wonderful.
I
Yeah.
I will never take a credit of any of the thing. I don't want to, but I would say I was in every transformation whichever has happened. I was there in some way helping them.
So you said that this was pranic healing.
This was a wholesome holistic. So I used so whenever I use now after being through and studied so many things, I don't stick to one modality. It comes as a whole because you can't just walk and not breathe and breathe and not do anything. And not you don't think. I'll say don't think, don't breathe, walk. It's difficult, right? So everything happens together. So that's what started with me. Like everything started coming as a whole thing for me. Then in my retreat, so I host a 5 days transformation retreat where I interview people and then only give them a seat in that retreat. I host a very close knit group in that. So there were a few transformation in that. One was a girl who had a trust. She couldn't trust people in such a way that she. This is all when they shared with me and I got to know. Only the people who are having this trust issue will understand this in a very deeper way rather than people who have not faced this issue. She could not leave her belonging like so as simple as a yoga mat in the yoga hall and go to her room and rest, though it was one resort booked all for us. Imagine. She wouldn't trust with that. And same represented in her everyday life, in her relationship. On the fourth day of the retreat, we practiced trust fall. Now, for an adventurous person like me, it won't be like that much. But for her to blindfoldedly tr- fall backwards, trusting on the couple of strange people who she met only 4 days back, and that they will hold it, it's a big thing for her. She did it. She did it. And for her, it was a transformation. Her personal, because she had this limitation that she could not trust people. And that was breaking her relationships. That was holding her back in her work. And this helped her. Second person had severe OCD issue. Now, in one of the sound healing session, they were all lying on the floor. I did the sound healing. People had their own experience. This girl, she comes to me. She started weeping. I was like, what happened? Like, Harsha, throughout the sound healing, I was just thinking that people must be walking with the sleepers, or must be dirt. I want to just get up and sweep the floor. I could not focus on the sound healing. I could not like give myself the space to relax in the meditation. I was thinking all about cleaning the space. Imagine to that level of existence, like OCD she had. On the fourth day, she was lying on the beach. She was lying on the grass. She was doing everything. And she came back to me saying that, Harsha, you know what? Though it was her personal thing, Harsha, I shared my personal yoga mat with my husband. So for us, like, okay, big deal. It's okay, right? Like, no, no, no. But for her, you can't even imagine in her mind that sharing her stuff because of that dirt thing, it's a big, big, big step. Like her sharing a yoga mat with someone, it's equivalent as like you opening your heart and sharing your vulnerable situations and your deepest secrets and everything to your partner. It was like that to her. So that was her transformation. So in a very subtle way, but very deeper impacts we had throughout this journey. And yogathon didn't just had one transformation journey, but several, because we hosted seventh year this time. So every year we have like 500 people or 1,000, like so online and offline all included. So there are many people after just completing the Ironman, sorry, just completing the yogathon, they have shared how that one thing transformed in their own belief system, that they could achieve many things in their life. One lady, she shared that her brother was going through a fourth stage of cancer. Still, she managed to come to the yogathon. And that journey, while she was having so much of pain, obviously, your own brother is going. She sent me a message after that how that 4 hours of yogathon literally hold that safe space for her to let that emotions flow through her body. And so there are some experiences you can't even express in words, what they personally had. So yeah, and I've just pray to the universe to hold me as just its instrument to do such kind of work in the world.
So you're doing something right, right? So if there is a coach who is listening to you, and if they want to create the same impact that you are creating, what approach should they take? What advice would you have for them?
So if you're a new coach, I would say don't just stick to one pattern, one theory. Start making it as a wholesome approach. It shouldn't be only about fitness at times. It could be a healthy approach. Like if you are into marathon coaching, start involving in your, or start understanding where your student is coming from. How is his lifestyle? How is his lifestyle pattern? check his blood reports, check his stress level. I know this includes a lot of involvement, but then as the quality comes in, the quantity goes away, right? You can't manage like having 1,000 students and then uh, focusing in all the 1,000 students. But yeah, but if you can focus on that, whatever students, number of students you have, and very focused as a whole, like what if there is a mental blockage in your student's mind that is not enabling him or her to go beyond a certain distance in their run, go beyond a certain PR in their weight training, or go in that swim. Like a lot of people panic, right? Have you ever sat with them and understand was there any kind of trauma? Like in one of the sound healing, uh, one girl, she is not a fitness student, but she just came for a sound healing. So she had this pattern. So after she finished, she shared this experience, and we had not spoken this before. She said, like, Harsha, I'm a person who is very scared to try new things, new adventures. If you tell me, I get panicked. And I never knew that why it was happening. Today, during the sound healing, I went back in my childhood. Somehow it just flashed that I had gone for a vacation in a beach, and one, two to three, well, like one person was like holding me in the ocean, and the grip lost or something happened, and I was stuck in the water for a couple of minutes, and nobody was there to save me out. And I was that time for the first time I had gotten to the beach. So I never knew that this has impacted me in my life in this way. That trying a new job, trying a new career, trying a new sport is always like a fearful thing for me. Now I know why. So when you know your why, you can easily approach, right? So that's what I'm saying. You being a coach, take a human being as a whole. Just don't focus on their speed, just don't focus on their power. Focus on them as a whole being. Like, for example, as simple as check whether their D3, B12 are in place or not. Check whether their cortisol level is high, because if the cortisol level is high, it's going to impact their training and it's going to impact their recovery. So, going as deep into their blood reports, understanding what supplementation they are doing, what kind of dietary habits do they have. What kind of relationship do they, don't go so much deep, but then in a subtle way, once you build a relationship, you should be aware that okay, fine, their house is not a disturbed house. It it's a fine, like day to day, like how we have in general. So when you are knowing your students, what happens, y- again, collaboration happens. The moment collaboration happens, you both grow.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think the understanding of yoga has really brought this wisdom for you so that you look at the person as a whole? Because the Panch Kosha that you explained.
I don't see anything happening in my student life as an outside of my coaching. You come with any kind of goal. Like some people come with an ultra marathon, some people come with weight loss, some people come for like monetary gain and business gains in their life. Everything has to happen when they are like in every way 360 degree, then when they are like in alignment. So yeah, that's my approach. And that's the approach I think if the teacher has, if the coaches have, the student will be so feel like taken care of.
To do this, you, like you said, you have to ensure that you have limited number of people that you are working with.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, collaboration becomes difficult.
Yes, collaboration becomes difficult because yeah, that's why I don't take many students. I take very selective students. I take very few number of students who are also open to do with me. But there are plenty of students who doesn't even want to go that much. Like, acha, listen, I just want to go, come, do the workout and go. I'm okay with that's fine. But a person, if they come to me like real transformation with like a full faith, then I also step out of my comfort zone and be with them. So it has to happen like both together. If the coach is ready and the student is not ready, doesn't happen. Both have to be ready. And yes, you uh so there everything is okay. Everything is correct. Some people work with mass. Some people work with very individualistic approach. I always prefer the other way.
Got it.
Yeah.
What is the North Star that you have as Harsha, human being?
As I told you, it's still yet to explore it because I'm a very open person. I never bind myself into any. I have a very short term kind of a goal. Long term goal, I don't define it very much because I feel that then it will be restricting me to explore. Yeah, so North Star is as of now a full Ironman is the recent like a nearby one. Otherwise, I want to go more deeper. Like as I said, I want to understand what's happening in the brain, like what's happening in the mind, what's happening in the emotions. I have this strong belief. Okay, I'll just set one example. A woman cannot lift a car, a normal woman, right? But there had been an instant where her baby just got inside the car, beneath the car, and she just lifted the car because to save the baby. Now, what was that force? So she had that potential, right? She discovered only when that circumstance. Even if she wants to do that, replicate the next time, she won't be able. She won't. She won't. Only that thing happened. So what if I can discover that what's happening? So my North Star is to discover and first myself, like how we can bring out the inner potential in a human being and then use it for the others upliftment, because I really feel that if I can score like 100 out of 100 in maths and uh, where I was scoring only 7 out of 100, I had potential. What was that trigger? So I want my North Star is to discover. So it's more of a research work where I want to discover how to trigger and how to bring out that potential in a human being, where he can like his potential comes out as 100-fold, not even just 10-fold. Like, what is that? So I want to discover that. Once I discover that, I'll be like, yeah, my life is sorted now.
That's a beautiful goal to have.
Yes.
Be the explorer, discoverer.
Yes.
Right. So let's say, so there is this woman who is in her 45s. She has all the intent. She does not need motivation. She has all the intent to lead an active lifestyle. But she suffers from autoimmune disease, arthritis, joint pains, and this acts as a limiter. So if she wants to transform her life and then lead an active lifestyle, what is your advice?
So this is a common case with most of the women in India, especially. We first of all are not very well educated about perimenopause. So a menopause in general, according to the survey, is hit around the 50, 51, 52, like that in India. So, but the symptoms starts happening from say 35 to 48 itself. Depends person to person. Now, in order to not face all the problems what you mentioned right now or to prevent them, they have to start working first of all from age 35 onwards and 40 more seriously. So, because there is a big hormonal shift which is happening for women, estrogen is the one which really holds a safe journey for them, and that starts depleting. And same with that, the testosterone also goes down. Though we understand that women don't have that much of testosterone, but they have testosterone and it plays also an important role in the women. So all the hormones start shifting. So that creates a lot of problems in their physical body as well as in the mind. They start having forgetfulness, hot flushes, sleepless nights, forgetfulness, all these things starts happening, joint pain ache. So what they can do is, number one, start having a good healthy lifestyle. Now when I say healthy lifestyle, it becomes very vague, right? Number one, sleep pattern. You should be sleeping early because uh, every organ in your body, it has a reset time. Like it goes into a self healing phase during the night, and that falls between 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Okay, so the more the sleep you have in this phase, in a healthy sleep, the better recovery you will have. So avoid all the late night sleeps. Sleep early, get good sleep. Okay. Secondly, start having a gynec visit. Even if you don't have any problem, go to a gynec. I do have a gynec, by the way. I don't have any problem, but I do have a gynec. Every 6 months, I go with my blood reports, talk to him about my symptoms, and he helps me. His name is Rajiv Agarwal. He's in Calcutta. He's a very good doctor. And I'm glad I have him. So I have, as I said, support system, remember? So you know what my support system is right now? So I have a good physio. I know he knows that I told him, like, listen, you treat 10 people, but then you are a part of my team. Like, though I'm not a pro athlete, but I need a team. I need to make a team because I need to know who I need to rush to or who I need to go to regularly. So every week once, I don't have any knee pain, I don't have any ankle pain, by the way, still I go to the physio once a week. Why? Because he does all the myofascial release, because their release is very painful, needed for an athlete. Then he does all the activation because we generally we um, because of our regular cycling and running and all, there might be some kind of imbalance in our system, in our right and the left limb. So that corrections and all is done by him. Then I visit 6 monthly to my gyno because I am also 40 now. So I need to know whether I'm on the right track and if there is any depletion in my blood counts, anything. So supplementations or health or my nutrition. So I have these support system around me. You can also have a dermatologist for you. Uh, I don't have one, but I'm searching for one because I'm an athlete. I'm a woman. I want to look good, right? But I'm all constantly on in the sun. Oh no, what can I do to rejuvenate and hydrate my skin? I need to have. So don't shy away from creating a system for yourself. So all the women above 35 have a strong support system for you who are like concrete support system. Start investing in yourself. Blood counts. See your estradiol, see your DHEA, see your cortisol level, see your all the blood counts, all the lipid profile. Have a look. Go to your gynec. Have a visit. When you are hormonally balanced, when you are nutritionally balanced, it will be helpful for you in the later stage. Second, weight training. Okay, cardio. Not that well advised, though I'm a pro into the cardio. But if you want to take care of your joint, the first thing which should be there in your plate is your weight training, because that will conserve your muscles. So you need to do your strength training, so that the more the muscles you have, the joints will be in a better position. Your brain will be in the better position, by the way. Even your muscles helps your brain to be healthy. We are not aware of it. So your strength training has to be in place. After that, if you can go to the cardio, fine. But if you have an option, cardio or weight training, go for weight training. Include yoga, because every 5 years and 10 years, you are going to lose your flexibility. You are going to lose your balance power. What do you hear the maximum number of challenges what old women face? That is the hip fracture. It's a very common. They slipped, they fractured the hip. Why? One, they did not train physical fitness wise, like in the strength training. So they don't have a powerful muscles. They don't have a strong joints, because weight bearing exercises also strengthens your joint. Secondly, they did not do yoga, hence the flexibility was less and hence the balancing was also poor. You need to have balance so that you can climb the stairs, you can balance. So these two things, and third is your lifestyle, like which include your sleep, your stress management. These three things, if you start doing, even the lady who is 45, she starts with this, she can like get back on track.
So
Weight training,
yoga, strength, and
yeah,
lifestyle changes.
lifestyle changes, and blood reports. Because this 45-year-old woman, she might be willing to do things, but she's so much in pain, and she doesn't even know if she can do a pain management, then she can start. At times we can't take a first step till we are in pain. So first she has to do a pain management with the help of doctors, with the help of physio, with the help of nutrition. Once she's done with that, then this. Again, all the women need to start taking care of them, not when they have the problem at 45, but at the age of 35, so that this perimenopause becomes easier for them. They will also, why yoga? Because they will start having hot flushes. We men are not aware of it. No, I'm saying we men because all the men I know, they're not aware of it. We women go through hell. Like, uh, uh, imagine if I'm doing Ironman in Goa, it is going to be hot. And on top of it, if I'm having hot flush, you know what is hot flush? Like what you are feeling in the AC right now. The AC is on. It's in 21 degrees Celsius, on 18 degrees Celsius. You are feeling as if it's 40 degree around you. That kind of feeling. And the women is surviving. They are not even talking about it. And that's where the frustration builds in a woman, and they become cranky and pain in their body and everything. So it has to be perimenopause care.
Okay, thank you. Now you talked about nutrition.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people might fall sick, they might get injured, they might start seeing pain all over the body. There are many things. So, nutrition must play a very vital role in many of these.
Many. Oh God, a lot.
So, if someone were to take care of um, their food and then nutrition, what are the basic things that one should pay attention to?
Now, first is don't shy away from the carbs. They are your friend, they are not your enemy, please. And don't focus on weight loss alone. Focus on muscle building. The weight loss will happen as a byproduct. Okay? So, love your carbs, but understand samosa is not a carb. It's like a.
He just ate samosa while and before we went.
Samosa, I'm saying that don't hate carbs, but then don't, when I say that statement, don't use that statement to eat samosa. I'm saying rice is good, roti is chapati is good, you know. Again, roti is not good, the wheat nowadays what we get. If you can get a proper wheat, which is not a good quality wheat, then it's fine. Otherwise have the other millets and all. But rice, I'm saying carb is good. Your body will need this as a fuel. And what nowadays people are doing is, they don't want to put petrol in their car. Carbs are our petrol, dude. Carbs. I love carbs. That's how I'm sustaining. I want to have some fat on my face, because uh, no, this is going to help me to survive. I want to be strong inside. Don't just want to look strong. I want to be strong. So love your carbs. But again, not samosa. Secondly, your protein intake has to be strong because it's not the energy giver, but it is the repair system. So you need to have more than 1.5 gram or at least 1.5 gram for your weight. So 50 kilos into 1.5 gram. Okay, this is the basic. And as your sports demand, it increases according to that also. Yeah. So according to the sport, the nutrition becomes more and more and more specific. How much hours you put in the week, and what kind of temperature you train in, everything involves how much electrolytes goes in. So carbs ho gaya, protein ho gaya, then comes the fat. Fat, it helps you not just in saving your organs, saving your tissues, makes you look young. By the way, uh, fat is very good. It also at times in your long endurance, when if you're an endurance athlete, starts acting as a fuel, especially in the ultra races and especially in the zone 1 and zone 2 races. So fat is also good, but again stick to the good fat. Like stick to not oil but to ghee, avocado, all those things, nuts. Have those kind of things. These are the macronutrients. Micro is like so important, but your first comes the macro and the sleep. Huh? Agar sleep disturbed hai, food disturbed, and then you're having lots of supplements, bhai koi kaam nahi karega. It won't helpful. But again, if you're having all these two things, and still you're feeling sluggish, angry, demotivated, and you're falling sick again and again, your D3 could be low because D3 is your immunity booster. Your B12 could be low because you're not feeling uplifted, energy nahi hai. So B12 is for energy, D3 is for immunity. Your blood count is also for that. Your hemoglobin, your ferritin is also for giving you the energy. Then because it has the capacity of carrying the oxygen. You demand oxygen accordingly. So according to all the sports, this has to be equipped. Remember, the one blood count for a normal generic people is different than of an athlete. So we need to focus that, because many doctors might not help you with that, or they might not. For a woman, they will say like 11.5 hemoglobin to 12 is okay, but for an athlete, it's less. It's on the lower side. So you need to be aware of it. uh, so if these things are placed, fourth and the most important comes is the hydration. Sub kar liya, but hydration nahi kiya, nothing will get absorbed in your body well. Because if you're having protein, but you're not having enough water, it will give you indigestion, it will give you bloating, it will not get digested properly, you will have stool problems, and then again you will discontinue. So your hydration has to be well. Secondly, uh, for specifically for the marathon runners, or for the ultra sport runners, or for the triathletes, those who are uh, running, make sure your hydration is on point, because that plays a stress on your heart. By the way, I was not aware of it. Lack of hydration can put a lot of stress on your heart. Oh my god, this such an important information. And as a beginner runner 10 years back, I was not aware of it. So the moment you're lacking your hydration in a run, you're impacting your heart over there. So you can ease out on your heart by doing two things during your run. One is you're keeping your core temperature low. How do you keep your core temperature low? By pouring water on top of you. So in Ironmans, we put ice on us if it's humid. Ice water or ice, or we keep ice. And you can put water on you the key to keep the core temperature low. Secondly, hydrate yourself well with electrolytes and water, so that you are both ways, you're taking care of your heart. So all these things are important as a nutrition part.
You brought up lack of hydration, putting pressure on stress on the heart. So nowadays, you see a lot of news. Somebody was working out in the gym and they had cardiac arrest, or somebody was running marathon and then they had cardiac arrest. So and someone was doing nothing but they had cardiac arrest. So we see all this. So if someone were to take care of that, and what can they do?
I hope everyone knows about the difference between heart attack and a cardiac arrest. So heart attack happens mostly because of the blockage, and it happens gradually. You can still survive if you have 90% blockage, but if the cardiac arrest happens, it's like the signal, it's broken over there. So there's the heart stops beating, or the discontinuation over there. So that place you don't have the time to survive much. The as a If you get a CPR, immediate uh, hospital care, then maybe. Otherwise, it's very hard. There are two, three things. The first chapter, when we did the marathon course as a certification long back in 2019, I learned that the first chapter was all about getting the pre-test of an athlete. So most of the coaches, most of the runners, first of all, they don't want to go to the coach. Oh, it's only about running. I can just go and run. Why do I need a coach? You do need a coach. So, first chapter itself says you need to have some parameters checked initially for the heart, and it's not your normal ECG. It won't tell anything. So, there is something called 2D echo test, TMT test, all this calcium test. All this test has to be done, so that you know if there is any there's a four chambers in your heart, right? If any of the chambers have some uh, thickness less or more, even that impacts. So the muscular structure of the heart, everything will be checked over there. Also, the cardiac arrest happens also due to some of the genetic built heart structure. So many factors are there. So but if you are pre-checked, the probability will be lesser. Secondly, understand cardiac arrest, if it has to happen, maybe happen, but what triggers it? There could be something which is triggering it. Can we have a watch on that? So I can't stop or I can't change what's there genetically inside you, but can we prevent the trigger? So that is one takeaway you can take. What are the trigger points? If you are constantly on the stress, if you're overtraining, if your heart rate variability is always low, and still you're pushing yourself for the training, that is bad. Then when you're running and when you're pushing yourself, your hydration is low. Again, you're pushing. When your stress level is very high, okay, and you're abusing yourself with other substances, not having proper sleep, again putting stress, and then going to a gym to hit a PR, or do a weight training to get a pump in your bicep, and can you imagine the two contrast thing? First, your lifestyle is like gone for a toss, and then you're doing a gymming. Not happening. You need to first have a stronger base. Why are people forgetting to build a stronger base? And please understand, heart attack can happen to anyone. We are not God. We can't stop it. But then at least we can take, we should not do stupid things to like invite it. So don't do like these kind of stupidity where your lifestyle is gone for a toss and you think that by training you can become a stronger person. No, it doesn't happen that way. First, if you have a lot of sleepless night, get your sleep fixed. Get your hydration proper. You know, don't do too much of alcohol. I've seen people after marathon they will go to do in I have done that. Earlier in my days before 2017. I have done that. After 2017 I had stopped completely. That we used to celebrate a run with a beer, dude. No, you're already dehydrated because see, I was not aware that much. You're already dehydrating yourself. On top of it, you're putting something in your system which will further dehydrate you. Why? Now it's a personal call to everyone. But then if I love myself thoroughly, and if I'm investing in myself, I'll take care of myself. No? So small things.
So, what you're saying is if you want to get into any recreational sport, understand the need of the sport from you, then accordingly take care of the nutrition, hydration, sleep, get your blood work done, keep an eye on that.
First get your blood work done. First step, get your blood work done. That's the most important thing. Be Understand if your body is ready for that work. A person came to me, his the D3 level was 9. Now with a 9 D3, and if you're planning to run a marathon, you are inviting a stress factor. This is simple, right? So first your blood work, first your heart checkup has to be done. Then comes the secondary part. All. That's the thing. Yeah. But rest, what you said was correct. Yeah.
So, what does intentionality mean to you in life, in sports, basically for you as an individual?
It's like, for me, it's equivalent to being aware of what you're doing. As simple as it starts with every step in my life. If I'm eating food, I should be having some intention, like an awareness why I'm having that food. So that gives you a very good perspective not to go in a very wrong way. Like, for example, if I want to load, like if I have a race, I want to load carbs. Now there is awareness over there. So I can have more rice and without guilty. Same way at the work. Why you are doing this job? Is it just to earn money for your family? Then I will just do the job and not be like depressed if my boss is yelling or doing something. Or am I being aware that I'm here to create something and along with it earn money? Are you aware of this? Then switch the jobs or do the job, or take a life decisions and career decisions according to that. If you're having a baby, what is the reason? If you're having a husband or if you're having a partner in your life, what is like why? What is that why? And awareness is all about intentionality for me. So that gives me a very good perspective and clarity. So I'm a person who can't take a step forward if I don't have a clarity. I need some sort of clarity of what I'm doing and why I'm doing and how I'm going to do this. So yes.
Thank you, Arsha, for coming on our pod. I guess we have to sit down once again to explore more. So thank you for coming and then sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. It was equally, as I was saying to you, everything I was listening to myself and I was revising on whatever I have like learned in my life. And thanks to you, I could do that today.
Thank you.
Thank you.